football fans? Welcome to the Onside Kick. Ricky Widmer here along with Dave Oster.
Hey, guys.
And Mark Weber.
Dinner's ready.
And we're here like we are every week to talk nothing more than the NFL and some college sports. But this time we've got both of them mixed together. Going to be talking a little bit of stories from the Combine. We've got Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers talking contract extension. And then Johnny Manziel looks like a young Brett Favre. But guys, the first story, Michael Sam came out as the first homosexual NFL player, and he was at his press conference today at the Combine. And first thing I'm just going to throw out to you guys is that at his press conference at the Combine, he didn't field a lot of actual football questions. And I mean, going up to the draft and even after the draft, do you feel like over Michael Sam's future career, he's going to see a lot of questions about him being homosexual and not about football, Michael Sam?
I don't think it'll happen throughout his career. I think that it's just because he's kind of breaking a new barrier that he's going to have a lot of these questions over the first year of his career. But I feel as time goes on, more and more players will feel more comfortable coming out. And it's not going to be such a huge ordeal as far as the media is concerned. But I think he'll always be remembered for being the first person. So I think he will probably carry that legacy with him. And from what I saw from his press conference, he seems to handle himself pretty well in front of the media.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's obviously very well spoken. He knows what he's doing up there. So that's good. I don't think, like you said, Dave, I don't think that this is going to really, be the thing about Michael Sam. You're not going to see, later on in his career when he's a veteran, he's going to go up to a podium and be asked questions about being homosexual still. Whether that's because there are more openly gay players in the NFL or it's just that we've gotten over it by that point. I don't know which one it'll be. But I would say even like midway through the season, I think we're going to stop hearing that be the topic of conversation. Of course, the first big Monday Night Football game, things like that, you're obviously going to have it be a big conversation piece.
Well, I mean, and Dave, you kind of hit the first thing that I was thinking of. When I first started watching the press conference, the first thing I thought of was, wait a second, is this a college kid or is this a guy who's been in the pros a couple of years? Because the way he spoke to the media and just was like firing question to question, it either seemed like he's got the right chemistry, I'm going to say, the press conference media chemistry to work with the media, or he has just done his homework day in and day out saying, okay, when I go into this press conference, this is what I'm going to say. He has thought of every single angle and every single question that the media is going to throw at him about him being homosexual.
Well, I think a lot of it is, I don't know if it comes down to him plus his agent, but I think it's definitely part of the agent's job to get him ready to be able to handle these questions in a live atmosphere with cameras and recorders around. So either way, he did seem well prepped for the situation. I was a little disappointed that the questions did focus so heavily on things that he doesn't really have control over. Like teams were, one reporter asked him, what would the general manager, how would you view things from a general manager point of view? He's like, look, it's not my job. I'm going to do it from my side. I'm going to be the best player I can be, and that's all I can tell you. I respect that.
See, but at the same time, I mean, going a different question, but kind of in the same vein, is when he was asked, what would you do if someone said something mean to you about you being homosexual? And he was like, you know what, I'll just tell them to stop, and hopefully it stops there. It's funny that this question comes up because look at what we just had with the Miami Dolphins, with Incognito to Jonathan Martin and how that is blown up, and now it just seems like, this is something we can ridicule Michael Sam for. Let's throw the Miami Dolphins in there too.
Yeah, I think obviously Michael Sam, I highly doubt he has never dealt with any of this type of
adversity.
Yeah, adversity, bullying, whatever you want to say. I highly doubt no one's ever said anything bad to him before. He knows how to deal with it. Obviously he does. He's gone this far and is perfectly okay being able to speak on, this obviously wasn't being broadcast on national TV, but it's all over the internet. It's going to show up on SportsCenter, things like that. So he's obviously okay with that. He's not afraid of that. And when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, I still stand by the fact the problem is that there was nobody to stand up and say to Incognito, sit down and shut up. There was never that. Incognito was able to do whatever he wanted because they didn't have that veteran leadership. There was no strong personality to stop him.
Well, and that's like, look at the team. One of the big teams that I've heard, some of the NFL experts say, hey, this would be a good fit for Michael Sam, would be somewhere like the New England Patriots. And kind of to compare them to what you just said about the Dolphins, you have one of the, I'm going to say, biggest leaders in the NFL, veteran-wise, and Tom Brady. You also have a coach that doesn't take shit from his players. And if you do something that he doesn't like, chances are you're going to be out of New England. That's just how Belichick runs his ship.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Even a little bit of, outspokenness kind of doesn't feel so good as far as Belichick's concerned. We heard a lot of that once Welker was kind of not under his hold. I don't want to say it like
not happy.
Well, yeah,
not happy at the Patriots, but then when he left for Denver is what you're saying.
Right? Yeah, he kind of came out and talked a little bit about his time and with the Patriots and under Belichick and how they tried to keep everything low key out of the media as much as possible, which I really understand. That's just the way they want to run their organization. I just think that it probably is one of the better landing places because of that policy and keeping everything pretty tight. And I don't even know if Belichick would let him do a bunch of press conferences to kind of give the media what they want. I think he might be one who's just like, nope, no press conferences for him.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of places that are going to be fine. I mean, I think really when it comes down to it, the Incognito situation, there was so many people after that, comes out where everyone's just saying, oh, that's how every NFL locker room is. Saying, from people sitting on their couches watching and have no clue and never have been in an NFL locker room. So I think you have things like that where it's not the norm. I think the normal situation is going to be just fine. He's going to be able to fit into almost any situation, any locker room without a problem.
And the one thing I thought about as I watched his press conference is just how he carries himself. If there's anybody that you want to kind of break this barrier, because it is a barrier in the NFL. With the Incognito stuff, you had guys where it's like, well, I was a gay player in the locker room, but I wasn't going to open my mouth because then I would get backlashed. And Michael Sam just seems like a guy to where you look at him and how he talks and how he carries himself, and you're like, you know what? He could be the one to start the break of this barrier. And this is going to be, I mean, I know we're talking about it really soon, but this could be one of the best things for the NFL.
Well, it's definitely something that's kind of been a long time coming. You have to understand, as far as barriers go, I mean, okay, first up, they really did, the biggest thing I think in history was the race barrier. Mm-hmm. And I think the NFL wasn't so affected by this. It was more of a baseball thing. I just think towards Jackie Robinson coming in and him getting all the hate from the fans. I mean, clearly, like him just running out on the field, fans would verbally abuse him, say ridiculous things. I think that's something, Michael Sam can kind of look towards as an inspiration of how Jackie Robinson handled himself. I know media-wise it's a totally different age, but still, he's a role model as far as breaking through barriers and doing it the correct way.
And I even think that, just society-wise, I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, we weren't there back with Jackie Robinson. But I think society is more willing to accept things and people that are different than they were back then when it was, Jackie Robinson, a black man's going to come and play baseball on this white team. That was like the attitude of how could that happen? Now we all view it as, yeah, okay, that's not surprising. I can see it. A homosexual player playing in the NFL. I'm not surprised.
It kind of almost was like, really, there hasn't been one yet. I'm a bit surprised that, it had been this. We've come this far in the NFL, and that was still something that was still, I don't want to say frowned upon, but just hadn't happened yet.
Well, and I kind of think, and this goes back to, try not to think just NFL. Try to go back to high school. The jocks, the football players. How did they usually carry themselves? They weren't the most politically correct bunch in high school. They picked on kids. I'm not saying that all football players in high school did this.
But the stereotype
is that they pick on the non-popular kids, the kids who might be gay, the band kids, the smart kids, the nerds, the geeks, the whatever you want to look at it.
You fill out a lot of those categories.
Football players, I do add fat to that, and
there you go.
Look at our YouTube channel. Look at some of the comments. You get that as well. But
and you got to overcome that adversity.
You do, and I mean, to me, Michael Sam looks like the guy to kind of carry this. I don't want to say burden. What's a better word for it?
Torch.
Carry this torch and bring us into a new era of the NFL, because I mean, it's about time that this kind of boneheadedness of football players kind of stops. Because, I mean, as an entire, not nation, but entire world culture, we're breaking this. We're trying to break this bashing of homosexuals.
Just look at the Olympics right now over in Sochi.
Mo problems.
Almost every single, country, especially most of the countries that are the bigger countries,
first world countries,
getting the media attention. All of them are coming out in support, whether it's with flags, whether it's their athletes legitimately just saying that they're in support of homosexuals because of the harsh words and the harsh laws
as far as the rights go.
Had passed and what they're trying to do over there. So the world, for the most part, is very accepting, especially, in the first world and all those type of countries. And I think, not to be, very political or global or anything like that, but I think America's organizations, such as, the NFL, the NBA, NHL, MLB, need to be trailblazers for how we need to react to things like this and just basically treat human beings.
Well, and I think the most important quote that I took away from Sam's conference at the Combine was, "And I just wish you guys would see me as Michael Sam, the football player, instead of Michael Sam, the gay football player," end quote.
Because really, I mean, when it comes down to it, what's the difference? He's going to go out there, it's going to be stats, it's going to be a contract, and that's what matters. Wins and losses.
And I mean, the only question that I really heard from his press conference about football was, which system would you fit better in, a 4-3 or a 3-4?
I mean, I think they did ask him about his workout as well, like what he's been training for. But you're right, there's not very many questions. And part of it might just be it's the beginning of the Combine, and this is what the news story's wanting. This is what people want. If they go out there and there's not a single question about that, there's also going to be comments on YouTube and ESPN and stuff saying, why didn't you ask anything about how he would react on whatever roster, or things like that.
Well, let's be honest. Are they giving every possible second round, third round pick their own private interview? No. And that's what you have to come to expect. It's like he has to understand that I am right now the only person like me. So I have to go ahead and, I don't want to say appease the media, but you have to deal with the media. You have to give them some sort of comments, some time, something, because that is the story around you. As much as I agree with him, he should just be seen as a football player. But if that's all you want to be, then don't take these media interviews. Avoid the media, but you'll get shelled for that anyway. So I think him coming forth and talking to them is a great thing, but that comment's kind of like, in a perfect world, yeah, that's all you would be seen as. But in today's day and age, you just can't expect that.
Well, he even said at the beginning, before he even took a question, he's like, you know what, I've come to realize with the media, no matter how much I feed you guys always want more. And I mean, us too, as a lesser part of the media, we're always talking about more this, more that. What are the Bears doing here? Vikings over here. Oh, Johnny Manziel. We always want to talk more with these guys. So, I mean, for me, I think, Mark, what you said earlier, maybe the midway point in the season is when everything stops about, like, okay,
I honestly think after, like, the first week.
You think so?
Yeah, I think training
regular
camp,
season week 1.
Yeah, I think
so
training camp,
the
they're going to hit them up.
Yeah.
Regular season, after the first week, we'll be into full football story mode. There will be so many storylines going on in the NFL that this is a no story anymore. Unless somebody goes out and makes a big deal about it. Unless somebody comes out, makes some comments, makes something public, I think the story will fade back. And I think that's an ideal situation for Michael Sam.
Well, let me throw this out there because I want to talk football about this guy a little bit. And I know he was asked about what system would you rather be in, the 4-3 or the 3-4. But one of the things I'm concerned about with Michael Sam is that Missouri had such a great year this past season that I feel like his stats might be inflated. And Dave, I know that you think the same way. It's when you stick guys that play well, and I mean, you stick guys on the line and you have another guy next to you that deserves so much more respect. Hey, let's double team this guy, and it allows that guy to get through the line. Do you think that the success that Missouri had and who he played with the Tigers is going to affect his NFL play at all? Do we see a lesson dip in numbers?
Let me start with, this is in no way taking away anything he did stat-wise, performance-wise in his time in college. But yeah, I think he had a phenomenal year. Nothing's going to take away from that. But as far as talent goes, he is like a second or third rounder probably. It's just that cut and dry for me. I see his performance as he had a fantastic year, definitely much better than his first couple. But like you were saying, Ricky, there's guys around him, and defense, I don't want to say it's like, okay, this guy had 12 sacks, he's amazing. This guy had 2 sacks, he's terrible. They all played on the same team, and you have to realize that, okay, there's a reason he got all these sacks. Obviously, talent is one of them, but there's other factors that base into the system. Like if you have great corners behind you, that means that you're going to be able to rush the passer, and he's going to be stuck there holding on to the ball even longer. There's lots of little factors like that add up. And again, not to take anything away from him, he had a fantastic year, but I don't think he's a first-round talent. I think he's probably second to third.
Well, looking at his stats from this past season, he had 31 solo tackles, 17 assisted. That'll be 48 total. And then he had 11.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Notable categories.
I think a strange thing is, and just kind of rolling a little bit off of what David said, no one has really kind of said that he is first-round talent. But I wonder what the reaction's going to be after the draft. Because surely, it's going to be something that's going to be in newspapers, it's going to be online, and everything of when he gets drafted. I wonder for the person who's not a football fan, if they see that he got drafted in the 5th round or something. I wonder what their reaction to that's going to be. Because anyone who watches football, anyone who's been paying attention knows this guy is rounds 4, 5, 6 maybe. Mm-hmm. This is where this guy's going to be taken. But other people...
But that nonchalant fan's like, hey, I've been hearing his name so much in the news. Why isn't he a first rounder?
I'm curious to see if that's going to be a big thing.
His story is one that kind of transcends football. Similar to the Tim Tebow story, where because of his religion, his faith was so out there that everybody came in massive support, and it just kind of became overwhelming as far as the football organizations dealing with him. So I don't see things going any other similar comparisons between him and Tebow, though.
Well, and one of the things that I know that right at this point, I know why he didn't get asked this question, but I feel like there's going to be a reporter that asks him. He was a defensive player. He played in the SEC. There's at some point someone's going to ask him about Johnny Manziel and what he thinks from the defensive side. And I mean, I know that Johnny Manziel, we talked last week. Is he a number 1 talent? Is he number 2, 3, whatever? But I personally wonder what his answer would be if he was asked what he thinks of Johnny Manziel as an opposing SEC player that's had to go up against him.
Sure. I think what we've seen so far is he's very smart up there at the podium. I think he would give a very...
Comfortable, too.
Yeah, comfortable. I think he'd give a very kind of safe answer. Mm-hmm. I think he might... Maybe he jabs at him just a tiny bit.
The phrase great competitor, I guarantee would be tossed in there.
Definitely.
It's just one of those kind of trademark, answers.
As long as I don't have to hear the Skip Bayless, he's just a born winner. He's a gamer. He's a gamer, Stephen A. Smith. He's a gamer. If I don't have to hear that, I'll be fine. But, I mean, I brought his name up. Might as well move over to another story we're going to talk about. Brett Favre came out and said that he was watching the game this season. The only game he caught of Johnny Manziel was against Ole Miss. He caught 3 quarters. And he said, man, I saw the guy play, and he reminded me of a young Brett Favre.
I find it so ridiculous that kind of Brett Favre comes out of the woodworks like way after this game, too, and just goes, I haven't been paying attention to football, haven't been watching anything, but I saw one game of Johnny Manziel. Not even the whole thing. I just saw one thing, and he reminds me of myself. Because, what is Brett Favre known for?
Talking about Brett Favre.
Constantly coming
Brett
back,
Favre
never being
accessories.
able to let it go. Now he just wants to live through Johnny Manziel again. Maybe he'll say, later on, hey, Johnny, those last 16 games you played, I think they count towards my record for my game streak.
See, I don't know. I feel like with Johnny Manziel, there's so many. I know we're in the combine and we're nowhere near the draft. We're closer than we were last week, but Manziel is going to be compared to so many people. He's going to be compared to Brett Favre because obviously when Brett Favre
thinks Brett Favre is like Brett Favre.
When Brett Favre comes out and says you remind him of a young Favre, you're going to get compared to him. He's already being compared to Russell Wilson, even though Russell Wilson was a third-round talent and Johnny Manziel is going to be drafted in the top 5.
And I think that's because of Russell Wilson's success. I think that leads directly to why Johnny Manziel is being taken this high.
It's not because Johnny Manziel's had 2, I'm going to go out there and say phenomenal seasons where Russell Wilson kind of had a good senior season at Wisconsin and everyone was like, okay, what is this guy going to do?
Honestly, if Russell Wilson had been 2 inches taller, he would have been a first-round pick. If he was 1 inch taller, he probably would have been a first-round pick still. I think that's the thing, is just height had been so over-scrutinized as far as the draft goes, and as far as talent, scouts were concerned, that it's just so overdone. And I think it was because we hadn't seen someone do it before. So Russell Wilson set a new precedent for, hey, short guys can, play too.
Well, I mean, Drew Brees has done it before.
Okay, yeah. Well, Drew Brees was the traditional pocket passer. I've got a cannon for an arm, and I'm going to make anybody a 1,000-yard receiver.
If anything, you would think a short guy who can run around, all right, cool, we don't care about the height now. He can move. He can get around and not worry about not being able to see people.
Exactly. We don't need a slow guy who's 6'5", 6'6", who's completely immobile. But, guess what? I just described Peyton Manning. So, I mean, there's a different quarterback shape and size for each team. I think it's just what do you feel comfortable working with? I think because Russell Wilson had that great success, and other quarterbacks too. I mean, it's not just Russell Wilson. There's a lot of mobile quarterbacks these days. But as far as the comparison goes, that's what they'd like to think. Because best case scenario, that's what he could be. Except what's above the shoulders as far as Russell Wilson's concerned is in a different category than Johnny Manziel. I mean, he's just different levels of maturity, just one end of the chart to the other.
Well, let me ask you this. Going back to the original Brett Favre, Johnny Manziel, do you see where Brett Favre's coming from? Do you see a young Brett Favre in Johnny football?
Somewhat. I'll give him somewhat, okay? His attitude, absolutely. Johnny Manziel. Gunslinger, loves living life, and on the field, there's nothing he wants to do more than win. He's super passionate about the game.
But he has fun.
And that is Brett Favre, in essence.
I won't really completely buy the comparison until I see good old Johnny Football pulling on those Wrangler jeans.
Oh.
Well, in that case, shouldn't Drew Brees be a little bit closer to Brett Favre? Because now he's the Wrangler spokesboy.
Very
of
true.
Active
I'm actually surprised that Brett Favre hasn't come out there and said, I don't watch much football nowadays, but I saw 3/4 of them Saints play. And I think that Drew Brees guy looks a little bit like me.
Nah, it was just because of the college. He couldn't have a contract with Wrangler yet. Now, once he gets drafted, they'll get everything set up for him.
I think, actually, there should be bets out there right now for what's the first contract, or what's the first sponsorship that Johnny Football's going to get.
I don't know.
I'm curious.
Gatorade,
really?
Gatorade's a safe one. Nike, maybe. I know they already got Cam Newton up there, too, but they could use another young guy.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I feel like an outsider, right? I could go Wrangler. I could see it happen.
Wrangler.
I could see it happen.
The dark horse? Wrangler, the dark horse.
But no, I mean, as far as play style goes, him and Brett Favre, not super alike. Brett Favre had, obviously, the cannon for an arm.
Yeah, but Brett Favre could also, if he wanted to, get out of the pocket if he had to and just throw it.
Favre was more comfortable in the pocket than out of the pocket.
But if he had to, he could.
But he had no problem running. Manziel still doesn't have that comfort level in the pocket. He goes first receiver, not there. Oh, better run. That internal clock is too short. He doesn't trust his line.
I would laugh if Johnny Manziel's first pass was to himself. Then the comparison's in stone, cut and dry.
For those of you who don't know, Brett Favre's first completed pass was deflected and he caught it himself. But, that would be truly amazing if that happened again.
The comparison would be cut and dry right there, right?
Yep.
Everyone, obviously, if you're a football fan, you can't deny the greatness that was once Brett Favre before the Jets days.
Which one? Wait,
after the Jets days.
Wait. Which Brett Favre? The purple, the green and white, or the green and yellow, or yellow and green?
Pretty much the yellow and green, and then
I just ignore the Jets days like it never happened.
Yeah.
You just go from greatness to done.
The thing about Brett Favre is you got to have a little while where it's not so great, then it becomes great, then not so great, then it becomes great. But anyways, I think the comparison here, I wouldn't really like it, actually, if I'm Johnny Manziel, just because what do we really, not everyone remembers this, but what did Brett Favre do a lot? Throw interceptions.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people are concerned about with Johnny Manziel, that he's going to throw a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, but he also threw a lot of touchdown passes, yards, completion. He attempted a lot.
A lot of ducks in the pond.
Yeah, a lot of ducks in that pond.
A lot of ducks in the pond. But, it's just one thing
Most
that you
consecutive starts by a quarterback, that is something to be...
And that I don't think is something that Johnny Manziel could because of his size, because of his play style. Honestly, I think that Manziel, more of a Flutie. And I don't mean that to be a bad thing.
Do you say he's not going to have a good NFL career then?
No, because I think if Flutie played right now, if you took Flutie and put him back in his last year of eligibility in college,
and he was
came out in this draft, I would think Flutie would be a first-round pick too. Honestly, he's a fantastic player, and he just played during the wrong era. He didn't have the offensive coordinators who thought this way. How can we use this guy? So he went and played in the CFL. Guess what? He did a fantastic job there. And he still played in the NFL.
Made his NFL debut with the Bears.
He made the drop kick.
Yep.
To end his career. There's a little nugget on top.
Well, one thing I'm going to bring up, last thing I'll bring up about Johnny Manziel, and I'm actually going to bring another quarterback from this draft class into the conversation. There have been scouts that have described Blake Bortles as he's tall like Big Ben. He's a top 10 pick for sure. And he's got the arm strength. As of right now, they throw this weekend. Would you rather have, first off, Bortles, who's taller than Manziel, but has smaller hands? Or would you, if you were drafting, go with the quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, who's not going to throw this weekend?
First of all, let me say, I don't like any quarterback that's not going to throw. Especially if you're one of those top quarterbacks. Prove yourself. I know you can say, I already have, all this tape that you can watch, but I want to see you go out there and throw. I want to see you just participate. That's what I want to see. Now, it's interesting because Johnny Manziel's not throwing either. Bridgewater's not throwing. Bortles is the only top quarterbacks that's going to throw.
It's almost like a holdout, but yeah.
Yeah, so he's the one who's going to be able to without a doubt, climb above Bridgewater. He can even go out there and make it competitive between him and Johnny Manziel, basically saying to a guy like Bill O'Brien, what do you want? Do you want the scrambler, or do you want somebody who's going to sit out there in the pocket and throw the ball? Because I can do that. So I think it's going to be very interesting because what Johnny Manziel could do, he could go out there and prove, I'm better. I am number one. For this kid who's sitting out there, and I'm not, it sounds like I'm bashing him a little bit, but it's just because I don't like people who don't participate in the combine. He's sitting there talking about how the Texans are going to be fools not to take me number one overall. Well, go out there and prove it. Prove it at the damn combine.
Well, you talk about that size and his weight like it's going to mean something. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Mallett. Blaine Gabbert came out 6'4", 235. Mallett 6'6", 245. Pretty comparable size-wise. And that's just to say size doesn't mean you're going to be a good quarterback. It means, okay, you fit the build.
In this case, size doesn't mean you're even going to play for either one of these
exactly.
guys right now.
I mean, Ryan Mallett is a guy who could play maybe on a lot of teams, but because he's backing up Brady right now, ideal situation. And Blaine Gabbert, well, we've seen what he can do. Yeah, and it's not very impressive.
He might get replaced by Manziel if Manziel goes to Jacksonville.
Entirely possible. So I think all this hype over Bortles is kind of ridiculous. He had he had a good season, one phenomenal game in the spotlight to finish it off, which I think just his draft skyrocketed after that. I really didn't see him being this phenomenal top 5 pick before the season or even halfway through the season. It wasn't until that last game where I was like, oh my God, this guy's a can't miss. Look at his size, his stats, everything makes sense. No. I don't know. I'll hold my judgment on that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm just saying, before you judge a guy just based on his size, his weight, his hand size. I mean, we're getting I don't want to say too technical because I'm sure there's measurables for everything, but still.
The one thing I will say about Blake Bortles, and this is what I think of him in a nutshell. First off, by him throwing at the combine and Manziel and Bridgewater not, he's only going to help himself if he performs well.
Yeah, and what if he doesn't?
If he doesn't, I'm not even going to think about that. If he doesn't, then everyone goes, okay, we knew Bridgewater and Manziel were ahead of him. If he does, people start to question, wait a second, maybe he's either the first quarterback to be taken or the next one under the Johnny football phenomenon.
I think he could jump Bridgewater if he has a good performance to this combine.
But the one thing I feel with Bortles, you're either going to have two sides of the coin. One side, the Christian Ponder side, where he gets to the NFL, he doesn't pan out, and a few years in,
couple mediocre
people
years.
are talking, basically asking for his head. And
then he's going to get replaced by Josh Freeman.
Yep.
And
that
Matt
could
Castle.
happen. Or he could have the type of career that Romo has had. Because Romo came out of Eastern Illinois, not a big school.
No.
I mean, Central Florida, not the biggest of schools. It's a BCS school, but not the biggest of schools.
Barely.
I mean, they do play in the AAC, not ACC, the American Athletic Conference. Not a huge conference.
They're known for their football dominance.
Yeah, that's why Louisville's leaving that conference, just saying. But I mean, I either think Bortles is going to be a pleasant surprise or a complete failure in the NFL.
Well, nowadays with quarterbacks, isn't it the only option here?
And you'll find out real quick.
Yeah, you're either going to fail in like your first 3 years and we don't want anything to do with you.
Except Sam Bradford, who keeps getting chance after chance, which I don't fucking get.
No, Sam Bradford's at middle ground. Or Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's good, but he's not great.
I don't know. He's getting close to great. He's having phenomenal years, but you got to also go, well,
yeah,
Megatron.
He's got Megatron. Yeah, that's exactly what he's got. And I mean, two stories that I just want to throw out there because the combine going on as we're recording this podcast. If you bring up wide receivers, Dave. Sammy Watkins apparently interviewed with the Browns, talking with Mike Pettin, new head coach.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Browns need lots of help everywhere. I don't think that they'd go first round Sammy Watkins, though.
I actually kind of like it, to be honest.
I mean, Josh Gordon on one side,
Yeah.
Watkins on the other.
And plus, I mean, you got Hoyer out there. Just give him a shot.
Hoyer.
He
Will
didn't
Hoyer
get
be
any
the
chance.
starter, though?
He didn't have a chance last year because he got hurt so quickly in the Sadness Bowl. But, I mean,
The Sadness Bowl.
really, for the Browns, why not? Because, really, how many quarterbacks have you missed on? You might as well just pack a solid offense to match up with your good defense.
And Hoyer
eventually
didn't
just
do
maybe get a
bad.
quarterback.
Hoyer wasn't terrible before he got injured.
They didn't have a bad defense. They didn't have a horrible offense, but still, passing on a chance for a top quarterback.
Maybe, though. I mean, maybe somebody trades up. Maybe somebody trades up and grabs Bridgewater or Bortles, at the, St. Louis's pick or something. Maybe pick 2. Then maybe even Jacksonville wants a quarterback too. You might not have the option. I like the ability to go get yourself a solid wide receiver so that way you don't have to get a home run on the quarterback that you eventually take.
Well, and another big thing that I'm seeing from the combine around another possible top 5 pick, Jadeveon Clowney, after he did his press conference, he's walking through the halls, and he apparently told ESPN.com, I wish they could trade up for me. He's talking about the Atlanta Falcons. But I hope I don't fall to number 6. I like Atlanta a lot. They're pretty good. They've got some guys from South Carolina on the team, and it's close to home. End quote. And I kind of see that, and I go, okay, I get it. You want to be a top 5 pick. Right now, a lot of people are expecting the Rams to snatch you up early on right now as we're in draft talk. But if I'm the Rams, do I look at these comments and go, wait a second, he wants to play somewhere else? Do we still go with him? Does this affect your any kind of pre-decision if you're in St. Louis in the war room?
I don't think it does. I think every player kind of wants to play near their hometown or something just for family reasons, comfort levels. But it's not like they're not going to play for you over there. I think that'd be too big of a thing. I mean, I just see it as almost, well, yeah, it's like Derrick Rose. Oh, yeah, I'd love to go to Chicago. Hey, guess what? I went to Chicago. That's
You're
awesome.
also talking about the same guy, though, and in Clowney that has question marks anyways, some about his dedication, his work ethic. The guy who says, oh, well, if I could have made my decision last year, I'd be in the draft. And then completely gave up this past season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you on that situation. And that's one reason why those question marks make me think maybe it's not so good to take him. Maybe there are other players available that will be more of a sure thing. And obviously, Clowney's a freak of an athlete.
Yeah, as I say, as far as athletes go, Clowney's right at the top of that list. And you got to remember, in this day in the NFL, pass rush is like, that's gold right there. You absolutely need to put pressure on the quarterback, as we saw from the demolishing of Peyton Manning.
And I'm just going to ask you this. Odds that the Falcons trade for the Rams pick, and like we've said before, Rams trade their second pick 2 times in a row, twice that they've had it.
Like 10%. I don't see it happening. I don't think that there's going to be a huge need or worry that Clowney's going to be taken at number 2. I think the Rams will probably go offensive line, and I think Clowney could fall till 6 and be picked up right where he wants to be.
Yeah, he definitely could fall. I completely agree with you. I see 0% for the Falcons trading up. There's no reason why they should trade up to number 2. At number 6, you can get a fantastic player at number 6.
Exactly, because we could see the run on quarterbacks. We could see 3 quarterbacks in the top 5. Boom. Now you plus that offensive lineman, and there we're at Falcons, just like that. So, honestly, I don't think it's a huge deal either way. I think, yeah, most of the Falcons know that he'd love to play for him, and any other team's just going to be like, yeah, it's just a kid who wants to play near his house.
Okay, last thing that we're going to talk about on the podcast, moving away from Combine, moving away from any incoming rookie.
Aw.
We saw this past, it hasn't even been a month since Super Bowl 48, where the Seattle Seahawks won. Demolished the Denver Broncos. But now we see a story emerging about San Francisco quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Went to the Super Bowl last year, but lost. Almost went to the Super Bowl this year. If he could have made one play, or if Richard Sherman couldn't have made the play he made, Kaepernick would be in the Super Bowl. Well, now it's been announced by NFL.com that the Niners and Kaepernick are going to start talking about a new contract because Kaepernick, he's entering his contract year. This is his last year before he can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to either shop the field or get my money. Do you think, and I'm going to say this, that the Niners should lock him up long term before the midpoint of this season or sooner?
First of all, Kaepernick's going to get so much money. He really will.
More than Romo and Cutler?
Around. I don't
more than Joe
Say.
Flacco?
No.
I know Joe Flacco's not the top anymore.
I don't think he'll get more than Joe Flacco.
I think he's probably looking at $130 million.
I don't know. I think that's a lot of money, though. 130.
You got a quarterback who's taken to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row.
Yeah, it's very true. But I think I see him more 115 range.
Just below
probably.
those guys? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, which really, we're talking, the difference of like $5 million here.
Yeah.
To us, that's,
No, that's pennies in their pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point, I mean, come on.
But I think, should they lock him up before the midpoint of the season? No, because I don't think he's going anywhere. I think even if they wait a long time, him saying that he might test the waters, he hasn't really made that statement yet, but even if he says that, it's kind of a joke. He wants to stay in San Francisco. He wants to stay with Harbaugh, the coach who believed in him.
Not if Harbaugh gets traded. Ooh.
Yeah, because that was a joke of a report. But he wants to stay there. He wants to be the better quarterback in this rivalry as well, because you can't go lose now to the Seahawks, have them go win their Super Bowl.
Can go to the Rams.
Leave,
stay in the division. Replace replace Bradford, right, Dave?
I just
jab
can't.
ya.
I just can't shake my head hard enough at you right now, Ricky.
There really just aren't any other places that will be better than being in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's the ideal situation for him. He knows the team. He knows the coach. Come on, it really is like a no-brainer. The team wants him. He wants to be with the team. They're going to make a deal. I don't know timing-wise when it's going to happen. I don't think there's a big rush.
When do you think it's going to happen?
I just think they wanted to declare their intentions, formally for everybody to know. Hands off, we're going to pay the man. You can cool off a little.
Let me throw it this way. When do you think it's going to happen? When would you put a prediction on when we could see a new contract? Will it be after the season?
It's either going to happen during preseason or after the season. I think they're going to try to stay clear of the talks during the season. You want to keep yourself focused on the game and not worrying about getting paid. That's obviously the key for them. And I think he's a smart enough player that he can work around that. I mean, let's be honest. This is a team that's just loaded with talent from top to bottom. He's taking them back-to-back NFC championships and, the one-year Super Bowl, the 1 year a playoff, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's just hard to imagine walking away from that.
Well, and I mean, it also depends on, I'm going to say, the reason why if I'm Colin Kaepernick, I'm kind of holding out. And by hold out, I mean don't sign a contract until the season's over. Because I really want to see if this Niners team is, I'm going to say, for real. Not for real as playoff team. They're going to make the playoffs. I questioned them this past season, and I was proven
mistaken.
Wrong. I thought they were going to miss the postseason this past season, and I was proven wrong. I will say that. But I don't know right now, can they make it to 3 NFC championship games in a row?
Absolutely.
Can they? Will they? What happens to Gore? Because Gore was can he stay healthy? Does Anquan Bolden come back?
Okay, so as far as the team goes, I think you raise an interesting question because if they throw down the money for him, they have to change mentalities as a team because that means they can't go out there and take these high-priced free agents and bring them in to help support them. It's almost like a whole changing of guard, changing of mentality thing they have to go through as far as how do we keep this team together at this price range because we can only toss so much money towards free agents now. Kind of like what Seattle is doing. Seattle right now, they went out there. They paid money to get big-name guys in to help them win this championship at other positions because guess what? They're not paying their quarterback. They don't have to worry about that. They will have to. And then, again, Seattle will have to change their way. I think right now, though, San Francisco, because they've had so many draft picks, because as an organization they're so smart, they've got all the stuff laid out in front of them. They're not worried when Gore is done. I'm not saying he is. I think he's still got probably 1 to 2 more years of pretty good production. They've got 2 guys behind him who are just fantastic talents who we just haven't even seen yet get a lot of playing time. So I'm completely confident in this team's future success for the next 3 to 5 years. I think they're definitely right in it.
Well, and I mean, you bring up the Seahawks, and I just want to throw out there. We've talked before, Richard Sherman, his contract's going to be up this year. But looking at the quarterback, Russell Wilson, he's got 2 more years left. So
exactly.
We're going to see back-to-back years. This year it's going to be the year of the Kaepernick, where what's going to happen contract-wise. And for Russell Wilson, I'm sitting there going, sweet, he's going to get his money. I'm going to continue to perform.
And he's getting a little more.
I'm going to get a little more because, A, I've won a Super Bowl, and it's after him.
Yep.
Win-win for Russell Wilson, right?
Absolutely, unless he really throws a stinker out this year like Flacco did. I mean, it could happen. Stranger things have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when it comes to your franchise quarterback, and that's one reason why it is safe for Kaepernick to wait until the offseason to sign a new deal. Because if he has an off year, you can say, yeah, but look what I did before.
Exactly.
This was just an off year. Same thing for Russell Wilson. He goes and does well again this year, or even does poorly this year and well next year. It's just one bad year. I got a Super Bowl ring, though. There's always something that can be said to why you deserve that money. And even just the simple fact of, look at the guys around me. Look at what everyone else is getting paid.
Yep.
I'm better than that. Don't you think I'm better than that?
And if you don't, I'll go play for somebody else and I'll show you that I am.
Exactly. This is just the way it is. It's the way of the quarterback's arm race, essentially. the money just keeps getting higher and higher.
Well, and kind of the thing I just thought of to kind of tie back to what we've talked about with the new age of quarterbacks coming in. We've talked about Russell Wilson, but I just thought we've never mentioned Colin Kaepernick as a guy where it's like, wasn't a first-round pick, and look at how, I'm going to say great, he's done. Because, I mean, he's gone to a Super Bowl. He's gone to back-to-back NFC title games. I mean, the 49ers now, I will say, because this past preseason I was a little biased where I said that they weren't going to make the postseason.
Yeah, you thought like your Vikings were going to go or something.
I did, and I will say I was wrong. I will admit that. But looking at the draft, he was taken 36th overall, second round. Quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him, Cam Newton at number 1. Okay, no-brainer.
Great talent. Yep.
Jake Locker at 8.
You know, that was an interesting choice.
Blaine Gabbert at 10.
Yo, Gab, he's got the size. He's got the strength. You can't miss talent.
Christian Ponder at 12.
That was just panic, I think.
Andy Dalton at 35.
Red
so
Rocket.
right before him.
I don't know. I think that a lot of the guys who have not performed up to their first talent grades, like I said, it was almost like, oh shit, they just took a quarterback. Who do we need somebody. We need our quarterback. Let's next guy up. Jake Locker's success was based off his previous year even. Like his senior year, he didn't perform well. He didn't deserve that first round grade, but he did get it because of how well he performed the year before.
Plus, he came out of Nevada, and we all know how everyone loves the pistol offense.
Whatever.
I mean, the pistol offense isn't really the most translatable to the NFL.
But you got to remember that Colin Kaepernick, he got one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL benched when he became a starter. That's saying something. I mean, I just can't put more emphasis on that. Jim Harbaugh had the faith to go with him as I don't want to say like a firecracker, but like he really opened up this team. He got them jump started, brought some life into a team that was winning games. I mean, no problem winning games.
Well, and that's why I'm going to say, and I've said it before, I'm targeting this at me personally. He proved people wrong because the first season, that Super Bowl season, like you said, Smith was starting, Kaepernick was starting. They were winning. It wasn't like Smith was complete garbage.
No, he was the most efficient quarterback in the NFL.
But then he came out without Smith. Smith gets traded, and then he comes out and says, you know what, I'm just going to do it again.
Exactly.
NFC
that was the
title
big test.
game. Well, now, Mark, me and Dave have been hogging the mics a little bit. I got to give you some mic time. What are you thinking all about this?
You know, I think y'all a bunch of bitches.
Are we?
No,
Are we a bunch of bitches?
I think, honestly, though, first of all, we got to look at the fact that who drafted Colin Kaepernick?
The
Harbaugh.
49ers.
Well, yeah, specifically Harbaugh went and got him. So he wanted his guy. We also got to remember Colin Kaepernick has the athletic ability that Christian Ponder does not have. Locker does not have. Any of these guys do not have that ability, so they aren't able to do what Colin Kaepernick could do. Colin Kaepernick could have done that on any of those teams. It wouldn't have been as successful as the 49ers, obviously, but it would have still been successful. He also had time to sit there, to watch, to learn, to kind of train and adapt. There's a lot of things that went into Colin Kaepernick coming from the Nevada quarterback into the NFL, going to the Super Bowl, going to the NFC Championship, being one play away from winning a Super Bowl. There's a lot that went into that we got to also take into account.
Well, and one of the things I just decided to pull up because we are talking about it being combine time in the NFL, looking at Kaepernick's grades from his combine, his overall grade on NFL.com was a 6.88. He was measured at 6'5". His arm length was 33.5, 233 pounds, and he had 9 1/8 hand size.
That's important because I was going to ask you how big his hand was.
Yeah, it seems to be a hot topic.
Well, and I mean, look at Johnny Manziel. He's in that he's about 6'8" bigger than what Kaepernick was.
Can we talk about how funny it is that this is a time where everybody's talking about, like, oh, the size of a quarterback is so overrated. Johnny Manziel will do just fine. And this year, we're just all obsessed with hand sizes. And, Ricky, you know what they say about a guy with a big hand.
Yeah, I do know what they say about that. They call him Johnny Football because that seems to be the whole talk right now. But one of the things that I'm looking at here, coming back to Kaepernick's report, The first weakness plays out of the pistol. That's the first weakness they had on him. Plays out of the pistol. He lacked experience under the center and has not been asked to make NFL progressions and reads. Not quick to check down or hit hot reads against the blitz. As he's done those in the NFL, though.
He was able to pick that up, yeah.
Yeah, he was able to pick that up really quick.
But
and
guess what?
Being under the center didn't matter because, hey, we'll just put him in shotgun.
Exactly. And it really is all about how well your offensive coordinator can play around your strengths and your weaknesses. And they let Kaepernick run, but they let him do it smartly. It's always like, well, your number 1's not open, your number 2's not open, your number 3's not open. But guess what? There's about 20 yards open field on the left side. Might as well let her rip.
Well, and it comes down to the one little snippet from his strength. Shows enough arm strength to make most NFL throws. If you have enough arm strength, you can overcome all your weaknesses.
There's something funny about this whole process because we assume these college students are done learning the second they hit the draft.
As soon as you're drafted.
They will never learn another thing. They will never be able to fix any issues. You know, that's something
Well,
that
it's certainly
we
not getting
assume.
any taller.
Yeah, well, maybe he eats some beans or something. He might grow a few inches. But it's a funny thing because a guy like Colin Kaepernick, yeah, he had some flaws coming out of college. Those are fixed. Those are worked around now. That's what happens. That's what you do with the offseason. You train. You learn. If you get the opportunity to sit on a bench, you can learn a little bit
I was gonna say,
as well.
when he used to get a quarterback in the draft and they would sit on the bench for a couple of years to work on those errors, to work on, bringing up their status as far as, I'm not great at making reads, I'm not great at this. They used to do that, and they used to progress as a quarterback on the bench. And then when they're ready, you'd put them on as a starter and put them in the spotlight. Nowadays, it's now, and you have to learn as you go. And I think, honestly, it's almost unfortunate for quarterbacks these days after Andrew Luck came out and has performed as well as he has, after RG3 has came out, after Kaepernick, after Russell. I mean, it's just like, I almost want to say we're spoiled these days, but we really are. We're getting some ridiculously talented quarterbacks coming out and being able to perform instantly.
Yeah, but I don't think the quarterbacks that you listed are just the end of it. Go back even further. 1983 when Elway came out. You were telling me that Elway wasn't going to start right away for the Denver Broncos? So, I mean, I feel like the way I take it coming back now, look at Aaron Rodgers. Who did he sit under? We all know. We said his name earlier. Brett Favre.
Giant football.
And now
Favre,
look
as the
at
Atlanta Falcons would have said.
the Atlanta Falcons. But we come out and he sat behind Favre. He
Look
comes
at all
out,
the quarterbacks who sat
he
behind
plays-
Favre, though. I mean, you got a lot of good ones.
Who? That's your point?
Matt Hasselbeck.
Matt Hassel. We want the ball and we're going to score against Brett Favre.
Somebody scored.
Yeah, it wasn't the Seahawks, that's for sure. But the point I'm making is, yes, it's good to sit behind, but I mean, look at it, ever since
It's not necessary
the 80s.
these days.
No, it's not, especially with everything that, like you said, the
You're
coaches we
naming
have, the
outliers,
systems
though.
we have.
You're naming, a handful of quarterbacks out of the hundreds that have come out in the draft. It's not like you're gonna go out and every year there's gonna be something. Oh, yep, he's our starter instantly. He's the best guy we've got.
Well, look at
naming-
college even now.
Yeah.
I mean, how many freshmen now are we starting to see crack starting lineups? I mean, yeah, I know Winston and Manziel were red shirts, but their first actual
No, they could
didn't-
have played the year before. They chose
they
not
could
to.
have, but I don't count the red shirt
Why
as
not?
like
They
a
could have
sitting out.
competed.
No, because that's the team half the time saying we're going to red shirt you because
So
either
you're
we have
saying
someone
that
else.
you're saying Jameis Winston would have started over EJ Manuel last year.
No, I'm not saying he
Well,
would
then
have.
he wouldn't have been a
So
starter his
we're
rookie
going-
year.
Yeah, but he got red shirted, so we never know. They red shirted him
But
so
that's the
that he
point,
could come
though.
out and play as a freshman.
That's the point, though. You redshirt them so you give them a year to sit and learn.
Because you're not going to play them.
Or you redshirt him
Because you know
when
you're not gonna
EJ
play him.
Manuel leaves, Winston has 4 years of
But
eligibility
he's not
left.
going to play for 4 years.
Supposedly he's going to play
Clearly.
for 3, which would be better than 2.
No, all you're saying is if you redshirt a quarterback, is you have a better quarterback starting for you right now. That's the point of a redshirt.
Not, and I mean, I do get your point. I do.
Period.
No, there's times people redshirt for, okay, I don't want him to lose a year of eligibility because we have a steady starter. So, boom, red shirt.
Oh,
now he comes
we
out and
have
has
a
4
steady
years.
starter.
Yeah, you guys are basically arguing the same point here. You guys are arguing the same point. Same ends.
Back to what we were talking about with Colin Kaepernick. Based on everything that we talked about, end of the line, is the man going to get his money?
Yeah, I think he will, without a doubt. It's just the way quarterbacks are paid now. Of course he's going to get the money. Plus, like we said, been to the Super Bowl. Was one play away from the Super Bowl. He's got success.
He was one play away from winning the Super Bowl and then one play away from getting back to the Super Bowl.
So why aren't we having the is Colin Kaepernick clutch discussion?
Don't worry. That'll come.
Because he has more than one playoff win in the last decade. More than one playoff win in the decade. That's why he's not there. That's who's really like Brett Favre. Tony Romo. Yeah.
Did you just compare Tony Romo to Brett Favre?
Yeah. He's got that gunslinger mentality. Honestly, the comments we made, gunslinger mentality, pretty good in the pocket, even better outside of it, and makes all the throws, but makes big interceptions, makes lots of touchdowns. Yeah, honestly, it's not like one size fits all. It describes Tony Romo too.
It's not one size
consecutive
fits all
starts
like
and Super Bowl wins.
Okay. Favre only has one win.
Yeah, more than Romo.
I know.
And look at
Romo's career's not over.
Brett Favre.
You also got to remember that consecutive games played doesn't really mean anything.
Tony Romo played through broken ribs.
Yeah. I mean, consecutive games
tough son
played,
of a bitch.
That's really cool and all. But what does that really get you?
Yeah, but at the quarterback position, look at the hits that Brett Favre took throughout that entire streak.
Yeah, sure. I'm right there with you.
All the way until Melton happened.
What does it give you?
Well, I don't know.
The
Saints broke him first.
What does that give
the Saints
a fan
took him
besides just a cool thing to say?
Wait. The Saints took him and made him weaker, and then the Bears kind of were like Bane, backbreaking him.
We will break you.
There were plenty of games in between there. You calm yourself.
Another guy who's up there, though, Eli Manning. He's got games played.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, though, games played gives you nothing other than a cool thing to say.
He's consistent. He'll be out there every year, every day, every weekend.
Doesn't mean much.
It means a lot to know that you can count on your quarterback.
And he's going to be there with
not
his
Jay Cutler.
Wins, though, is what matters.
And he's got that,
too.
too.
Got wins.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you bring up Eli Manning, he's going to keep one more year with his head coach, Coughlin.
Yeah, surprisingly, Coughlin gets another year. I think they're hoping that, mediocrity, surprise Super Bowl.
It's bound to happen eventually.
Yep.
But that's going to do it here for the Onside Kick this week. I want to thank everybody for checking us out, taking a listen. If you disagree with us, agree with us, leave your comments down below. Hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/The Onside Kick. Ask us questions or comments on Twitter at Onside Kick Real. And as always, have a good day, everybody.